All right, so blogging. Now that you made your page, you remember earlier I mentioned that WordPress was both WordPress.com, which was like a blogging platform, as well as WordPress.org, which is the actual technology we use to create the CMS that we're utilizing. Um, so blogging, you may or may not be familiar with. You probably have seen blogs and maybe didn't even realize it. Basically, it's a way of people being able to post their content. Usually, it has a sort of intimate style to it where it's very personal, like it's written usually in first person. And typically, what people will do in blogs is that they make posts and then they are archived by date. And so you'll see one blog, then you'll see another blog, then you'll see another blog. You know, you think of like Reddit, right, where they just have a list of them. So you'll see blog after blog after blog. And typically when people create their blogs, they usually do it around a subject matter that they either are an expert in or they have an interest in, or in some way they want to make some sort of comment about, right? So some people with their blogs, they make it very much like a journal entry where they'll write it out like a little diary, or they'll do like a travel blog or a food blog. Those are kind of typical blogs that you will often see. But it's the reason why I think it was gravitated towards was just for the fact that, like, if you wanted to, share your own content on the internet instead of just consuming content, it was an easy way for people to do that because you didn't necessarily need to know how to code or pay for a website or upload or do any of those other things. You could just go directly into it, put your content right there. This also predates blogs, predate social media. So these were kind of like the first sort of social media type thing that we even had. Now that being said, they are probably, I don't know if they're as popular as they once were, but they are still really useful. I would suggest not using it necessarily as a personal diary. I don't suggest doing that in general anyway. But there are other places to do that, right? Like Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all those other social media sites where you can put your voice out there. So you don't necessarily need to utilize a blog for that. But from a business sense, it actually does make a lot of it is actually very useful. So I wrote down some here, but the idea here is that for one, it'll increase traffic to your site. So in your blog, you might have all this interesting articles and content, and people might go there for memes and jokes and things like that. You can draw people in, and then you can direct them to your website. So they'll see that, and then they'll go to the official site, right? You can improve the SEO. The more things that are linked to a website, the more webs there are, the higher up your SEO goes. So linking your social media accounts, linking a blog, linking whatever you can to other sites. Like if you can link to a site, like if a site has a link to you, that's a very recognized, has a lot of traffic, that will increase your traffic. You can look at it like popularity, right? The more friends you have, the more popular you are, right? But even more so, if you're friends with like the most popular kid, then you're even more popular just by being associated with them. It's the same idea for SEO. That's basically search engine optimization, just as a reminder. So that will also is also a really good way to add a personal touch. So when you create a website for a business, be it a restaurant or a mechanic shop or whatever it might be, you want to have a sense of professionalism in it. And that doesn't really, and you need that because if people, especially if they put their money into it or they're trusting it, you can't really have it be too fun because they won't trust it as much. So you can't have as much of a personal touch to it as you might like. So one way around that is actually to create a blog that is linked to it. And that way they'll see your business not just as a business, but also as you as a person. One of the most valuable assets you have is yourself, right? That humanity. So that's a really nice thing. You can create positivity around a brand and improve the recognition. So because you can add that personal touch and you can put link to like different social media things like, oh, look at this Twitter post about my restaurant and look at this other things, and you can put those all inside of of the blog. And then again, you would link it to there, but it would create a positive vibe about the brand itself. right? As well as just obviously create recognition, because what can happen is people might start following the blog, not because they care about your restaurant, but they like your perspective on certain things, or they find, oh, this is fun, or they might like go to the blog because you post things that are like local events that are happening. And then you'd be like, oh, we're going to be at this event as well. We have a food truck. So it's a real good way to kind of just build a coalition. You can also produce connections between customers and potential customers, as well as you and the customers, because the blogs generally have built-in comment section. People can comment on your brand, and then they can talk to each other. Obviously, there's some issues with that. You got to make sure you moderate them. But it's another way for them to get a hold of you. It's another way of them to get a hold of others, right? So it's a really nice way of creating community. And there's a bunch more reasons to create a blog, especially for a business. It is a lot of work, but it's one of the best ways, just like you would do everything else when you have to use social media now in order to help promote your business. A blog is another way of doing that. And in some ways, it's a little more controlled. You have more control over the look of it, the aesthetic of it. So if you are going to do a business, is one of those things I might suggest. There's a million different articles you go out there, but I included this article here. It just links to different blogs. Some people use blogs as just actually a way of making money themselves. Like that'll be like their full-time job is just having a blog. And what they'll do, just like social media influencers. So, and sometimes they'll have content on there that you can purchase and things like that. So there's a lot of different reasons. So this wildly successful, these are ones that they'll actually show you the monetary amount that these blogs are bringing in. But like I said, there's the intangibles, such as like just the brand recognition that might not show up as, a blatant money value, but it does increase the money. So anyway, so blogging is a good idea, generally speaking.